everyone. Today we're going to start talking about a new lesson, Modular 6. So today we're going to take start 6.1, Understanding Quadratic Functions. You can find all my lessons on my website. Okay, if you have any question, contact me. Okay, try to do this to warm up questions because if you need a question, just tell me. Now, let's start with explanation 6.1. So as we can see here, understanding the parent quadratic functions. Parent quadratic function, from its name, which is parent, let's say the parent, which is the father, the mother. Okay, so the father of the quadratic function, that what we're going to learn today. So the first thing, a function in the form fx equal ax squared plus bx plus c is called a quadratic functions. Okay, so now the quadratic function is ax squared plus bx plus c, which is the terms a and b and c are constant. Constant means what? Means number. Okay, so that's mean just an example. So we can say that 5x squared plus 2x minus example 3. Okay, so now we can say that 5 is a, okay, 2 is b, negative 3 is c. Okay, so that's meaning of constant. And where a is not equal 0, a is not equal 0, because if we replace here 5 with 0, okay, so it will be 0x squared. So 0x squared equal what? Equal 0, right? So that's mean my function 2x minus a 3. So now this one, is it a quadratic function? No, this is a linear equation, okay? Because this one is y m x plus b. So this one is a linear equation. So that's why a cannot be equal 0, because if a equals 0, so that term will equal to 0, and it's remain only the linear function. That's why it's not equal 0. Okay? Quadratic function have a degree of what? 2. Degree of 2, because look to the power here, power of 2. So always the quadratic function is power of 2. Now, the most basic quadratic function, okay, basic, okay, means the parent, okay? So most parent or the most basic quadratic function is x to the power of 2, okay? So now, let's say example, if we have 1x to the power of 2 plus 1x plus 1c, okay? So we know that 1 here is A, okay, and 1 here is B, and 1 here is C, right? Okay, so now we can rewrite this question because number 1, we don't write number 1, right? So the my question x to the power of 2 plus x plus 1, right? Okay, so now if I ask you now, b is equal 0, write for me a function b is equal 0 and c is equal 0. So now if I have b equals 0, c equals 0, a cannot equal 0. Don't put a equals 0. This is wrong. Okay? So you can put b equals 0, c equals 0. So now if we put this one equal 0 and we put this one equal 0, so my function is what? My function, it's remain x to the power of 2. So that's the parent or the main function of the quadratic function. That's why the most basic function is f of x equal x to the power of 2, which is the parent quadratic function. Okay, now how the graph quadratic function is to the power of 2 look like? Now let's pick points. Okay, let's pick points. So here is negative 2, negative 2, 3, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. And let's replace them in the function. Okay, so now if we use negative 3 here, if we replace it in x to the power of 2, so it will be negative 3 to the power of 2, which is equal 9. So same thing here, if we do with the negative 1, so negative 1 to the power of 2 is equal 1. Same thing here, 0 to the power of 2 is equal 0. 1 to the power of 2, okay, 1. 2 to the power of 2, 4. Then 3 to the power of 2, 9. Okay, so as you can see here, we have this is a quadratic function with the points. So now let's put the point. The first one, 0, we have the 0, 0. We have 1 and 1. Okay, we have negative 2 and 4, 2 and 4. And we have negative 3 and 9. 9 is here. and we have a 3 and 9 is here. So as you can see here, my quadratic function, it goes like this curve here. Okay, maybe some of you will ask me, teacher, it's look like an absolute value function, which is V letter. Okay, I would say it's look like same, but this one it's look like V. Okay, always V, maybe like this or flip V. Okay, but the quadratic function, which is x to the power of 2, always it's U. Okay, always is U. Maybe U like this, okay, or U like this, which is look like smiley face, or you can sad face. Okay, it depends. If it's smile, that means positive. So if it's negative, is downward. Okay, now that's what we need to know about the quadratic, and we can understand the quadratic graphing, the quadratic using this. Now, the curve is called parabola. So parabola, some student they said parabola, some said parabola. So this is they giving a different name, but the correct name is parabola, and you can call it as you like because it's just a name. Okay, so that we call the curve. Okay, so as you can see, the curve here, the blue one, we call the quadratic function, which is another name of the quadratic, is a parabola. Okay, now here the point where the parabola turns direction is called vertex. So now where is the vertex? The vertex is here. Why we call this one as a vertex? Or we can call it also the center, right? Because it's the center of your graph. Because if your graph, it start like, let's say, goes down, and then at the vertex, it start goes up. Okay, so as you can see, that is the vertex, which is the point. So, and here in this graph, the vertex is equal what? 0, 0. So what's the point here? So this point is 0 and 0. Okay. Number 3, a vertical line that passes through the vertex and divide the parabola in half is called axis of symmetry. And we can just summarize axis of symmetry by taking the first letter from each word, AOS. So AOS is axis of symmetry, is the y-axis. Now, if I ask you this two question, what is the domain of the x square, x to the power of 2, which is the parabola? So now it's from left to the right, so from negative infinite to positive infinite. So my domain is from negative infinite to positive infinite, or if you check your book, the book will say all real number or all real value. If you write this word, or if you state this one, both of them are same. Now, what is the range of x to the power of 2? Okay, which is the parabola. The range from the lowest point to the highest. What's the lowest point? The lowest point is 0. What's the highest point? It's infinite. So now it's starting from 0 to positive infinite. Okay, and this one is rectangular bracket because it's in 0 is included value. Okay, now let's continue. And let's learn how we can graph if we multiply, if we have a. So negative 2 here is a, right? Because we know that the function is ax squared plus bx plus c, right? So now b is 0, c is 0. So now we have a x to the power of 2. So it's look like the question here. Okay. Now, let's use this. Now let's substitute. So negative 3 replace to the x here. So it will be negative 2 times negative 3 to the power of 2 is equal what? Negative 2 times 9, which is equal negative 18. Okay? Same thing here. You do the same thing. Negative 2 times negative 2 to the power of 2 is equal negative 2 times 4, which is equal negative 8. Same thing here, negative 1, sorry, negative 2 first, times negative 1 to the power of 2 is equal negative 2 times 1, which is equal negative 2, and 0, always it's equal 0, okay? And because the axis of symmetry, okay, what's the axis of symmetry? I did not explain it very well. What's the axis of symmetry? The axis of symmetry, okay, where is the shape reflected itself? So if you look here to the graph, this one in the green color, okay, this one in the green color is the axis of symmetry, which is the graph in the right side. It should have the same value on the left side. the right side, same value on the left side. The same thing here is same thing here. Because if you calculate the distance, here the value is 1, here the value is 4, here the value is 9. Okay? So if it's 4 here, it should be 4 here. If it's 1 here, it shouldn't be 1 here. It should be 1 here. Same thing, 9 here, 9 here. So if you look now to this one, because we have here -2, so the answer here should be always -2. If the answer here is -8, this one also should be -8. If this one is -18, so this one should be -18. Okay, now let's graph my function. Let's start from 0, 0. So now it's 0, 0. Then the second point is -1, -2. Okay, then 1 and -2. Then we have -2, -8, which is here. Then 2 and -8. Okay, we have -18. It's fine if you don't plot to -16. It's fine because you only need 4 or 5 points to graph the parabola. 5 points is enough to graph the parabola. Now, what's the domain? Always the domain of the parabola is from -infinite to positive infinite. Okay, the range is from, okay, if you said from 0 to infinite, this is wrong because always we start from down to up. Okay, so down is what? Down is -infinite, and up is what? It's 0. So now from -infinite to the highest point maximum is 0. Okay, let's take one more, 2 examples. So now let's graph this one. And this question here, graph the quadratic function by plotting points and sketching the curve, state the domain and the range. So now we need to create the tables. And believe me, if you don't have B, okay, and if you don't have C, always, if you don't have B or C, always start with the table, always make tables like this, X, Y, -2, -1, 0 in the middle, always 1 and 2. So always make tables, start in the middle of your table, always you will start 0, 0 because you don't have B or C. Now, let's substitute -1 in the function. So let's substitute -1 in the function here. So now negative half times -1 to the power of 2 is equal negative half times 1. So so the answer is negative half. Negative half means negative 0.5. Okay. Why I am writing this? 0.5. Okay. Now let's substitute the -2 also in the x. Okay. 1 over 2 times -2 to the power of 2. Okay. Sorry, I didn't write negative 0.5 here. Okay. To the power of 2. So that's mean -1 over 2 to times 4 is equal -2. So the answer here is -2. And as I told you before, because this one is -2, this one is -0, and because the axis of symmetry, the numbers here should be same thing here, negative 0.5, and the -2 should also here -2. Now, if you need to graph, okay, now plot the points, 0, 0, -1, -half, okay, -1, -half here, okay, -2, -2 here, 1.5 here, 2 and -2 here. So now your graph will look like this one here. That's fine. Okay, you understand. The domain, all real number. Or you can just stay from -infinite to positive infinite. It's up to you. The range from the lowest, which is -infinite, to 0. Okay, so this is the range. Now, let's go to the this question here. Do the same thing. Okay. Sometimes you can create the tables like this, or you can create your tables like that. It's up to you. Okay. And always, when we don't have B or C, always the middle should be what? 0, 0. Now pick 2 points less than 0, -1, -2. Pick 2 points greater than 0, which is 1 and 2. Now replace them in the function. So -2, replace it in the x here. Let's do it mentally. So now 5 over 4 times 4, because, sorry, let me do it for you. -2 to the power of 2 Okay, so that means 5 over 4 times 4, right? So 5, first of all, if we have a fraction multiplied with a number, so we multiply only the numerator with the number, but then we divide by the denominator. So 5 times 4 is equal to 20 over the denominator 4. So 20 over 4 is equal 5. So the answer here is 5. Okay? So now if we multiply it with 1, same thing here. You replace 1 here. So the answer it will be same thing, 5 over 4. Okay? Same thing here, it will be 5 over 4, and here it will be also 5. Okay? So 5 over 4 means 1 point something. It's fine. So now let's graph the points. So 0, 0. Okay? If you have decimals like this, you don't have to plot the decimals. You can plot only the real whole number, and you can graph. So negative 2, 5. So negative 2 and 5 is here. Then 2 and 5, 2 and 5 is here. Can we graph using only 3 points? Yes, we can graph. Okay, just a small sketching like this. Because if you look here, the question said sketching. Sketching means it's not very accurate. It should be accurate, but not very accurate. It's fine, it's not very accurate. Okay, so now the domain from negative infinite to positive infinite, or you can say, or remember that it's from the lowest point to the highest point. The range is from 0 to infinite. So that's the range. Okay. Now you have here summarize all the my graph that I did. So now what's the common things between all the three graphs? All of these graphs, okay, has same vertex because the vertex is 0. If you look in the purple color, and the axis of symmetry always x equal 0, because if you look here, this is x equals 0, x equals 0, x equals 0, because in the center of the point x equals 0, which is the vertex here. Okay, now here are some questions. Try to solve them. If you need any help, contact me. Here, let's understand what is the minimum and the maximum. Okay, when graphing, okay, g of x equal ax squared compared to the parent graph. So the parent graph is ax squared. So now we understand that if a greater than 0, like just example, 5 x squared, so 5 is greater than 0. If this number is greater than 0, it's open up. So my parabola, it's open up. If now, if like this question here, okay? Now, okay, if a greater than 0, so that's mean we have a minimum value. So because this one is positive, so that's mean we have a minimum value. We don't have a maximum, okay? Now, if a, okay, if we do it in that color, so if a is less than 0, just give you an example here, like negative 2x squared, just an example. So because a here is negative and negative is less than 0, so that's mean when a is less than 0, we have maximum value. So as you can see here, if I ask you now, what's the minimum value of this graph? It's 0, okay? And what's the maximum value here in the graph? Is also 0. Now, how do I know is this is maximum, this is minimum? Okay, from a greater than 0, minimum, a less than 0, maximum. Okay, now let's continue. Here we need to find a, okay, in the graphic. Okay, so we have a g of x equal a x to the power of 2. Okay, now we have a graph and we need to sketch the graph. Okay, don't bother yourself to understand these things now. I will re-explain this one in 6.2. The important things now, how we can find a. Okay, look to this question. Now always the question will give you the graph like this one here. So now always the question will give you 1 point from the graph. So you have the graph and you have 1 point in the graph. So what's the purpose of this point? You are going to use it to find a. Now, first of all, write the formula. F of x equal a x to the power of 2, right? Now, the point, okay, that we have here, it's 2 and 2. So this 2 is x, right? Okay. This 2 is, let me write, sorry again. So this 2 is x, and this 2 here is y. Or we can say f of x, right? Because y is f of x, same thing. Okay, so now we have x, and we have f of x, which is y. Now, can we replace f of x? So what's f of x? F of x is 2, right? And equal, A, x is what? X also is 2, okay? So now we write times 2 to the power of 2. Now simplify this equation normal to find A. So 2 is equal A times 4. So now if we need to find 4, we divide by 4, we divide by 4. So we divide both these. A is equal 2 over 4, half. So now we get A. Now the next step we need to do, we need to go back to the function and we replace it here. So to write the function, now it will be f of x equal half x squared. So this is the answer. See how it's easy? Easy? Yes, it's easy. Let's take one more example here. So now look to this one. So now we are going to use this point. This one is x. This one is f of x. Okay? Now let's write the formula. F of x equal ax squared. Okay? So now f of x is equal negative 8. Negative 8 equal a times x. X is negative 2 times negative 2 squared. Okay? Now simplify negative 8 a times 4, then divide by 4, then a is equal what? Negative 8 divided by 4 is equal negative 2. So now this is A. Now replace it in the function here. Okay, so it will be f of x equal negative 2 and A. Okay, sorry, negative 2 is x squared. Sorry, negative 2 x squared. Okay, same thing here. Okay, if we take the point x and this one y or f of x. Okay, now let's put the points. F of x is equal a x squared. F of x is 4 times 1 to the power of 2. So 1 to the power of 2 is equal 1 and divide by 1. So a is equal 4. Now the function is f of x equal 4x squared. Okay. So now this is my final answer. No, if you look now here, a is positive, which is greater than 0. A is greater than 0. So that's why it's upward. And here, if you look to the A, it's negative 2. Okay. So that's mean A is less than 0 because it's negative. So it's downward. Okay. It's downward. Now that's it for today. I hope you understand the lesson. The lesson is easy, but you need to practice and graph more. And if you have a question, just contact me. Try with these 4 questions and let me know if you need any help. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.